folks at Ben Sound for this lovely spiky piece that gets us going in the morning. Keith Hayes with Rouser Radio. And if it doesn't sound like me this morning, I'm full of pea and vinegar. I've sat out in the garden for a while, enjoyed the day, enjoyed the fact. It's the sound of the birds and the buzz of the bees, and the sun is coming over the horizon. And as a consequence, I'm all full of fun. Don't know whether you heard a word of that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Here I am, Keith Hayes with Rouser Radio, and away we go. It's 10 minutes past 8. I never remember what time we're supposed to start this program, but anyway, that's how much it is. 10 past 8. And if the mix of this isn't so hot and you can't hear me or you can't hear the music or whatever, it's still the learning curve. We're trying very hard to learn how to do this properly and to do it smoothly. But then, as you've only got a few listeners at the moment, I'm sure that they'll forgive me, because most of them probably know me and think I'm an idiot. Well, they all think I'm an idiot. But let's wake up to the sound of Buddy, dear old Buddy. Keith Hayes, Rouser Radio, coming from Lewes in East Sussex, on a lovely, lovely morning. One would like to say summer, but it's still only May, and we have to be very careful, because I think the thing is, cast a clout till May is out. In other words, it could turn funny in the next couple of days, so let's beware, let's be careful. I picked up a few different tracks this morning. One or two I thought should sound bubbly because they were all about breakfast, and they weren't. And one or two had funny names, and they turned out to be bubbly. So we'll do a hit and miss as we go by through the morning. Let me welcome you to Rouser Radio, which is part of Mirador Television. Now, Mirador Television also emanates out of Lewes, and while it has a local element, we are local, not parochial. And we actually broadcast via Roku to the United States, to the rest of the UK, and to many other places in between, because we get remarkable emails of people who have seen us. MiradorTelevision.com or on Roku. Got one from Nigeria the other day, an old friend who used to live in Damaturu, which is up in the northwest, and has moved down to Lagos. And I've only ever spent a short period of time in Lagos. In fact, I was going to meet a colleague coming down from Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. We were to meet in Lagos and go on to the airport together. And he said, Keith, if you don't mind, would you meet me at my church? I'm an elder of a church, and here's the address, and if you take a taxi from the airport, and then we'll meet up, and then off we'll go. And we were going to one of the coastal towns, whose name will come back to me in a minute, because as usual I've forgotten the name, which is damn silly because I know it very well. But anyway, we were going to fly out. I arrived in Lagos, got the taxi, got to the church, and there was a great big long queue. I couldn't understand it. And suddenly somebody came forward and grabbed me and said, "Oh, you are the friend of our elder." And I said, "Yes, indeed I am." And he said, "Okay, come on, we are going to push you into a nice position in a balcony where you can see the service." And he said, "It is rather long." He did warn me. Anyway, there wasn't another white face in the place. It was a very typical sort of gospel African church. And it was a memorable experience, I have to say. And I was up in the gods, surrounded by those lovely, lovely black ladies that you find in so many countries abroad, who are laughing, beaming, very, very motherly and maternal, and they looked after me, and they made sure that I knew which hymn was being sung, and so on and so forth. Part way through, I was called down. I heard my name, and they said, go on. And I had to go down to the front of the church. And my friend and the pastor said we were going off to Calabar. That's where we were going, Calabar, which is down in the southeast. and incidentally, where there is a monument to an English lady who helped start the end of slavery. But anyway, I was blessed, and we were both blessed, and off we went to the airport and got on to I think it was called ABC Airlines or DCL. I've just forgotten the name now too, because it's a few years ago. And this airline was famous for its pilots actually pointing the nose of the jets towards the earth rather than towards the sky. So I was rather glad that we'd got a blessing from the church to get us to Calabar safely. And indeed they did. And when we got off the plane, I sort of said to my friend, well, thank goodness for that. And I'll relate my adventures in Calabar some other time, or later in this program, or whenever it occurs to me. But we got there safely, and we started on our mission, which was talk to and try and help better the techniques of those journalists who are operating in that area. And that area, delightful though Calabar is, was also plagued by pirates and gangsters who had taken over the Port Harcourt oil refineries. They hadn't actually taken it over, but if you actually worked for them, they suddenly would appear and they would kidnap somebody and hold them for ransom. And they weren't above slitting a throat or two if they didn't get the ransom. So these journalists were working in the very most difficult circumstances, and we had to treat it sensitively, which I hope we did, and we had a good time. But that was getting to Calabar with the blessing of the wonderful evangelistic church, if that's the right word, in Lagos. And when we were due to fly back, I said to Victor, my colleague, Victor, your lot got us here. I wonder how we're going to get back. And lo and behold, we actually looked at the loading plane, and there were a whole bunch of bishops and church dignitaries from the Anglican Church getting on board with their purple vests and their white collars and so on and so forth. And I said, okay, your lot got me here, let's see if my lot can get you back. And indeed they did, and we arrived back in Lagos to continue our work in Abuja, Damaturu, and other parts of Nigeria. So that was just one little instance while I was there. It's 17 minutes past 8. We've been going for 8 minutes. So let's see if I can find one of the things that I put up this morning and see what it sounds like. I love finding these things and then taking a look and saying, oh my goodness me, here we are. This one is called Pink Sunrise, and it's not too long. So let's have a go. Well, I think that wasn't too bad. I thought that was rather nice, rather pleasant. Pink Sunrise. Well, it's not pink this morning, it's blue. What's it all saying? sunset at night, shepherd's delight. Sunset in the morning, shepherd's warning. Well, we have no warning today from the clouds and the sun anyway. But what we may have is, with any luck, a decent day again. And it's funny that just a week or two ago, we were out in a miserable wind and rain and so on, and now it's almost too hot to go out after we prayed for it. Oh, well, such is life. Such is life. Oh, gosh, I'm bursting the microphone again with my yelling and screaming. Anyway, we just talked about being in Nigeria, and one of the interesting things about Nigeria is we sometimes tend to think of countries just what is ever in our minds. Not many people know Nigeria, and I must say that I only know a bit of it. The bit that I do know, I'm delighted that I do. I have worked in Calabar, which is down in the southeast. I've worked in Abuja, which is the capital, and it's one of those false capitals. They built it on the model of Washington in the States, and it hasn't quite worked. Don't particularly care for Abuja. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have a centre. The other thing about Abuja Airport is the first time that I went there, I arrived, and the flight from London gets in about 4:30. So by the time that you're dispersed in the plane and through and so on and so forth, and done all the necessary documentation, it's about 5 o'clock. And there was a jeep waiting for us, and we got in, and the driver was accompanied by a man holding an automatic rifle. And I thought, now, my goodness me, why that? Why in the supposedly capital of Nigeria have I got an armed escort? The reason being is that the airport at Abuja is a little way out of town. It's several miles out of town. And in the early hours, when it's still dark, it is known that let's see if we can lower this a little bit so I'm not bursting in the middle of the night, or at least 5 o'clock in the morning, when they know there's an aircraft has come in, particularly from a wealthy country. Some of the bandits that do roam the country will come out of the bushes brandishing their guns, and they will actually hold up people coming in from the airport, steal their goods and disappear. And on the odd occasion, when somebody's resisted, there have been the odd death. So we got an armed guard just in case anybody tried to take us over. I have to say that when we actually arrived at the hotel, which is named something like the Rockport, it had a very sort of, and it was an old colonial hotel, if you like. And even though it was old and rickety and so on, it was rather nice. It was rather pleasant. It was a throwback to the past. And when I actually got to Damaturu, I will tell you about the hotels there sometime, if you can call them hotels. Absolutely hilarious. I can say that those people who feel the thrill of travel, if you want a comfortable ride when you go to some of these places, is forget it. If you think that you're going to go into sort of a holiday hotel and then take a look around, pat people on the head, forget it. You've got to be pretty rough and tough to go to some of these places. Not least of which is the bandits that I just talked about roam fairly freely across the country, and you have to be prepared for them. And in fact, we actually had to run a barricade on our way back from Damaturu on one occasion, and I'll tell you about that as well. But travelling in these circumstances isn't always the great delight that it should be. Damaturu, of course, those of you who like to collect names, Damaturu was the centre of it was Sharia law while I was there, and then it was taken over by Boko Haram, and I've mispronounced that, but I can't be bothered this morning. The terrorist group, and it was held for quite some